Here are the top stories for today, August 10, 2021. The Philippine economy recovers from the losses brought by the COVID-19 pandemic in the second quarter of 2021. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 ramps up its strategies to stop the spread of emerging coronavirus variants. President Duterte orders the DILG and DSWD to lead the distribution of cash subsidies in certain local government units. And a walkway that promises therapeutic effects nears completion in Legazpi City. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, the country is bouncing back from the losses brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Philippine Statistics Authority reports that the country's gross domestic product grew by 11.8% during the second quarter of the year. National statistician Dennis Mapa said the economic growth is considered as the strongest economic growth performance of the country in the past years.
The Philippine Gross Domestic Product, or GDP, posted a growth of 11.8% in the second quarter of 2021. This was the highest since the 12.0% growth recorded in the fourth quarter of 1988. The second quarter of 2021 GDP is about 489 billion and 370 billion higher than the second quarter 2020 and first quarter 2021 GDP respectively. The net primary income from the rest of the world declined by minus 53.8% during the second quarter of 2021, bringing the gross national income to grow by 6.6%.
Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Chua says the economic recovery of the country in the second quarter of the year is the result of the government's efforts to balance the economy and health of the Filipinos. The Philippine economic growth accelerated to 11.8% in the second quarter of the year from a negative 17% from the same period last year. Chua says this is the highest GDP growth recorded since the fourth quarter of 1988. He said the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, will continue to accelerate the implementation of their three-pillar strategy to achieve growth and job targets. He said among the enablers of the country's recovery are acceleration of the vaccination program, safe reopening of the economy, and full implementation of the recovery package, such as the 2021 budget, the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act or CREATE, and the Financial Institution Strategic Transfer or FIST.
The robust performance is driven by more than just base effects. It is the result of a better balance between addressing COVID-19 and the need to restore jobs and incomes of the people. On the production side, all sectors expanded except agriculture, which slightly contracted by 0.1% because of the decline in pork production. Meanwhile, the industry sector grew by 20.8% and services by 9.6% as we managed the COVID-19 risk better and eased quarantine restrictions.
Public school teachers are set to receive an additional incentive from the government in time for the celebration of World Teachers' Day on October 5. President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the release of the World Teachers' Day incentive benefit amounting to 910 million pesos. This means that the 900,000 public school teachers will get 1,000 pesos each. DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones said they will issue the guidelines for the distribution of the said benefit. The government is working double time to further prevent the spread of coronavirus variants of concerns in the country. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 says the government has established a controlled community transmission and system capacity to prevent the emerging COVID-19 strains. According to Task Force Chief Delphine Lorenzana, The government has established a controlled community transmission and systems capacity to prevent the emerging COVID-19 strains.
Para po matupad natin yung ating misyon at layunin, ay gumawa po kami ng 4-door strategy for COVID-19. Ito po nga unang pintuan o first door is point of origin, itong pagpipigil ng mga umuwi. Itong door 2 ay point of entry, ito naman sa mga screening, quarantine at testing dito pagpasok dito sa bansa. At ang door 3 ay yung PDITR at vaccination. Ang door 4 ay enhance PDITR, prevent healthcare systems from being overwhelmed, para po hindi mabilaukan yung ating mga healthcare system.
Manufacturers of medical-grade oxygen may soon get tax relief from the government. During last night's talk to the people, President Rodrigo Duterte acknowledged oxygen manufacturers for continuing their production during these trying times.
I'd just like to comment on sa preparation ng oxygen. Saludo ako sa mga tao who are up to the sinasabayan nila yung crisis ng Pilipinas. Kailangan talaga natin ng maraming oxygen. I'll talk to Congress. Bigyan kayo ng tax relief dyan sa ginagawa ninyo.
Meanwhile, President Duterte reiterates the use of face shields and face masks as a precaution against COVID-19. He also encourages the public to get vaccinated against COVID-19. He said the plan to beat COVID-19 will not succeed without people's cooperation.
Ang importante talaga, simple lang. Distancing, hugas ng kamay, tapos may mask, tapos may shield. We're trying to control the spread of the virus, but we can only do so much. Kailangan kayo mga tao magsunod talaga sa utos ng gobyerno. Kasi ito para sa kabutihan ninyo. Hindi ito para sa kabutihan namin.
Outdoor exercises are no longer allowed in Metro Manila during the imposition of the Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ status. The Department of Health earlier said that the country has gone up to high-risk classification amid the continuing rise in the number of COVID-19 cases. Among the cities with high-risk daily attack rates in the National Capital Region are the cities of Makati, San Juan, Pasay, Las Piñas, Muntinlupa, Parañaque, Valenzuela, Pasig, Mandaluyong, Taguig, Manila, and Quezon City. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos said all Metro Manila mayors agreed to temporarily prohibit the conduct of outdoor exercises.
At bilang panghuli, Mr. President, ay nagpasa rin kami ng resolusyon ngayon lang hapon na ultimo paglabas ng bahay, maski mag-exercise ay bawal na po sapagkat importante for the next 2 weeks talaga mapalagaan ang mga tiga Metro Manila. Yun lang po.
More than 70% of tourism workers in Metro Manila have been vaccinated against COVID-19. The Department of Tourism reports that as of August 9, a total of 19,315 out of 26,745 tourism frontliners from the 14 cities and municipalities in Metro Manila have been vaccinated. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat said the vaccination of tourism workers is a necessary step to keep them protected, especially with the threat of the Delta variant. She said their department aims to vaccinate 100% of tourism workers before the end of the ECQ period. The police and military are offering free rides for authorized persons outside of residence or APORs. This is for the entire enhanced community quarantine period in Metro Manila and nearby provinces. The Libreng Sakay program of the Philippine National Police can be availed in 10 routes daily from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eliazar said the Libreng Sakay program in the following select routes will strictly implement health and safety protocols. Passengers are also provided with face masks, bottled water, and useful information materials such as supplies allow. Meantime, the Armed Forces of the Philippines is adding 5 more military trucks for use in the Free Rides program. These trucks will augment the operation of the 4 RRCG buses earlier deployed in major routes. The Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, opens 5 new routes in Metro Manila. This means a total of 255 UV Express units are going back to the streets. The LTFRB says roadworthy PUVs will be allowed to operate if they have valid and existing Certificate of Public Convenience, or CPC, or application for extension of validity, and if all units in the MC are registered with a personal passenger insurance policy. Operators of the concerned UV Express units will need to secure a QR code from the LTFRB website and have it printed in a short bond paper and posted on their PUVs. 3 more remains of the military personnel killed in the July 4 C-130 transport plane crash in Paticul, Sulu have been identified. Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson Colonel Ramon Zagala confirmed the identities of Corporal Genmar Mondido, Private First Class Lester Alagrada, and Private First Class Benshin Sabadukia. Zagala said the families of the 3 personnel have been informed about the report and the remains are being prepared for transport. He said the AFP condoles with the families of our deceased comrades as they exhaust all efforts in order to identify the remaining victims and bring them to their final resting place. A total of 40 bodies have now been identified, while 10 are still undergoing the identification process. Aside from the 50 military deaths, 3 civilians on the ground were killed, 46 military personnel and 4 civilians were wounded in the said incident. Still to come, President Duterte orders the DILG and DSWD to lead the distribution of cash subsidies in certain local government units. And the Coast Guard apprehends a COVID-positive traveler in Dapitan. Details ahead. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective. I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said some local government units may have to take a back seat in the distribution of financial assistance for families affected by the enhanced community quarantine. Duterte has ordered the Department of Interior and Local Government and the Department of Social Welfare and Development to take over the cash aid distribution in some disorganized LGUs. Duterte said some LGUs don't know how to set up an organized distribution process of cash assistance. While he did not name the LGUs involved, he pointed out their mistakes on the pandemic responses had happened several times. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año said the government has allocated 10.8 billion pesos in funds to more than 10 million low-income Filipinos residing in the National Capital Region, which is under ECQ until August 20. DSWD Secretary Rolando Bautista, meanwhile, asked for the public's understanding as the distribution of cash aid in areas under ECQ will experience delays due to the imposition of health protocols. Bautista said they can't force the LGUs to complete all necessary transactions within a certain period because they have different capacities. Delay may also be caused by database issues. The Metro Manila Council has decided to simultaneously distribute aid on Wednesday through electronic wallets and face-to-face distribution. 1,000 pesos will be given to each low-income individual or a maximum of 4,000 pesos per household. LGU should complete their delivery within 15 days. Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar condemned the deceitful and malicious spread of fake news on the government's COVID-19 vaccination and cash aid programs. Andanar shut down rumors that unvaccinated individuals in areas under ECQ would not be allowed to accept cash. He said the government denounces the attempts of certain parties to make the government look bad and cause public confusion by sowing fear regarding the government's response to COVID-19. Instead of subscribing to unreliable sources online as well as relying on information from word of mouth, he urged the public to monitor from credible news channels and news sites. Andanar reiterated that the Duterte administration does not prevent unvaccinated individuals from getting financial aid. Meantime, he urged everyone to sign up in their respective local government units and wait for their schedule to get inoculated against COVID-19. A returning overseas Filipino worker in Pangasinan has contracted the more infectious COVID-19 Delta variant, making them the first Delta case in the province. Provincial Health Office Chief Dr. Ana Maria Teresa de Guzman said the patient is a seafarer who arrived in the country on July 13. She said the patient went home on August 3 after completing his mandatory quarantine in Manila. The OFW arrived at the drop-off point in Tarlac, Pangasinan, La Union Expressway along with 20 other returning OFWs. She said he was tested positive for COVID-19 when he arrived in the country, but he was able to complete his quarantine and was considered as recovered. De Guzman said the patient, together with his family, is now under mandatory quarantine. Among his close contacts were from Pangasinan, La Union, Ilocos Sur, and Abra. Despite the government's efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19, authorities have apprehended those who insist on breaking quarantine protocols and even going around while infected. Chris Mundo has the story.
Coast Guard personnel apprehended a 32-year-old inbound passenger with a positive swab test result for COVID-19 last August 5 at the port of Dapitan City, Zamboanga del Norte. The passenger was caught during the profiling of inbound passengers upon arrival of the roll-on roll-off vessel from Dumaguete City. The Provincial Interagency Task Force transported the COVID-19 positive passenger to a designated isolation facility. The Provincial IATF requested the Port Management Office to investigate the incident, disinfect the vessel, and identify close contacts of the infected passenger for immediate isolation. In Zamboanga City, the local interagency task force intercepted on separate occasions 10 inbound passengers at the Zamboanga International Airport with fake RT-PCR test results. Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar said that 8 of the 10 were intercepted Saturday upon arrival from the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. She said all 10 were fined and sent back to Manila, their place of origin. They may also face charges. Since last week, a total of 23 passengers were sent back to their place of origin for faking RT-PCR test results. Meanwhile, the DOH Western Visayas Center for Health Development has urged the province of Antique to continue with its contact tracing as additional local cases of the Delta variant were detected in the province. On August 6, the DOH reported that 19 of the 31 additional local cases of the Delta variant in the region came from Antique. It also has 14 alpha, 1 beta, and 2 theta local cases. As of August 6, Western Visayas has already recorded 150 cases of variants of concern and 15 variants of interest or theta. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon Jr. on Monday rebuked critics who have been adding political color to the use of funds by the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. Esperon noted that these critics are suggesting that the NTF-LCAC fund should be diverted to COVID-19 efforts. He said these statements regarding the budget to counter the CPP and PANDF were self-serving political statements meant to entice voters in the upcoming national and local elections. Esperon emphasized that fighting COVID-19 is not only the cause for concern, citing the economy, criminality, and efforts of sovereignty in guarding the West Philippine Sea. Esperon debunked claims that next year's budget will be used for election purposes and that the BDP allocation for this year was poured in Davao, the bailiwick of President Duterte. Esperon added that pursuing the BDP does not mean that the government is abandoning the needs of people severely affected by the pandemic. He said the government is mindful of the problems brought by COVID-19, which is why it enacted Bayanihan 1 and 2 and now discussing Bayanihan 3. The NTF-LCAC has a total fund of 19.13 billion pesos, with the support fund to the Barangay Development Program or BDP is 16.4 billion. He said this covers development in 822 barangays that were cleared of the CPP and PANDF from 2016 to 2019. Up next, a hero's welcome and more rewards greet the Philippine boxing team as they return home from the Tokyo Olympics. And a walkway that promises therapeutic effects nears completion in Legazpi City. We're back after a quick break. Stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. France has been selected to host the next Olympics in 2024 as the Summer Games ended in Tokyo, Japan on Sunday. The Philippine delegation came home to a hero's welcome with more incentives awaiting them. More on this from Lade Cabagay.
The 2020 Tokyo Olympics, which began without spectators on July 23 due to COVID-19, concluded with a closing ceremony on Sunday. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach called the Tokyo 2020 Games as the Olympic Games of Hope, Solidarity, and Peace. He cited how the IOC and Japanese partners and friends exerted an unprecedented effort to make the Olympics happen. With the end of the Summer Games, the Olympic flag was passed to France as the next Olympics will be held in Paris in 2024. The US topped the medal table at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, taking home 113 medals in total, followed by China with 88 medals and Japan with 58 medals. A hero's welcome greeted the remainder of the Philippine delegation as they returned home after attending the Games closing ceremony. The last batch of the Olympic squad is mainly composed of the entire boxing team that won 3 medals during the final week of the event. Senate Committee on Sport Chairman Bongo and Executive Secretary Salvador Miguel Dia personally welcomed silver medalist Nesty Petesio and Carlo Paalam, bronze medalist Yumar Marshall, and medal contender Irish Magno. Philippine Air Force Chief Lieutenant General Alan Paredes also welcomed Airman First Class Marshall and the rest of the boxers. The most bemedaled boxing team later paid a virtual courtesy call on President Rodrigo Duterte, who gave them additional cash rewards on the top of the incentives provided by the law. President Duterte said Paalam and Petesio will receive additional 2 million pesos from the office of the president. Marshall will receive an additional 1 million pesos while Magno will get 200,000 pesos. Also, Filipino athletes who participated in the Olympics will receive 200,000 each from the office of the president. The medalists will also be conferred the Order of Lapu-Lapu, and all those competed in the games will be given presidential citations. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics is so far the most successful campaign for the Philippines, garnering the most number of medals since participating in the games. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Lade Cabagani.
A measure exempting from all taxes the rewards and other perks for national athletes and coaches who compete in or win in international sports competitions has hurdled committee level at the House of Representatives. The House Committee on Ways and Means approved the unnumbered substitute bill for the proposed Heidelin Diaz Act of 2021. The base bill was filed by Speaker Lord Alan Velasco and Committee Chair Joey Salceda in light of the historic gold medal win by weightlifter Heidelin Diaz. The silvers from boxers Nesty Petesio and Carlo Paalam, and the bronze won by boxer Yumar Marshall in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Salceda stressed that the best Olympic performance of the country corresponded with the largest public investment in its Olympic program. He said, under President Rodrigo Duterte, the budget for Philippine sports is at 944 million pesos for this year, which is almost 4 times the budgets under the past presidents. Meanwhile, San Miguel Corporation President Ramon Ang announced that he will give the Tokyo Olympics medalists a total of 22 million pesos in incentives. Ang's personal gift, as earlier announced by the Philippine Olympic Committee, will consist of 10 million pesos for Diaz, 5 million pesos each for Paalam and Petesio, and 2 million for Marshall. The SMC president expressed his joy for the victory of the athletes, being a longtime partner and supporter of Philippine sports. He said the country can build on these successes to develop stronger sports program and produce more Olympic winners. He expressed confidence that the Filipino delegation can only get stronger in the succeeding Olympics. The construction of the 1.2-kilometer esplanade in Legazpi City is now 80% complete. The walkway is close to the 4-kilometer boulevard between Albay Gulf and the majestic Mayon volcano. The walkway, which is expected to be open to the public before the year end, is ideal for leisure and physical fitness activities. The City Engineering Office said the structure includes a unique pavement made of paver stones, which are said to have a therapeutic effect when pressed against bare feet. Ibo said the city government will put up stalls for rent to residents who would venture in small and medium businesses. City Mayor Noel Rosal meanwhile said they decided to build the walkway along coastlines for a more serene environment that is free from noise and air pollution. Before the pandemic, the city opened the Sawangan Park and Kalayaan Park as additional destinations for visitors. Ilocos Norte celebrated the 115th birth anniversary of the late Governor Roque Ablan Sr. with a virtual commemoration. Ablan Shrine in Laoag City was opened exclusively to family members. Personnel of the Laoag City Police also paid tribute to him through a simple wreath-laying ceremony with 21 gun salute. August 9 is a special non-working day in Ilocos Norte pursuant to Republic Act 6941, which commemorates the birth anniversary of Ablan Sr., a World War II hero and labor leader. Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc enjoined all Ilocanos to commemorate the memory of the late governor and labor leader. Attorney Christian Ablan, Undersecretary of the Presidential Communications Operations Office or PCOO, said the previously grand celebrations are gone because of the pandemic, but the memories of his father remain in the hearts of Ilocanos. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The Philippine economy recovers from the losses brought by the COVID-19 pandemic in the second quarter of 2021. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 ramps up its strategies to stop the spread of emerging coronavirus variants. President Duterte orders the DILG and DSWD to lead the distribution of cash subsidies in certain local government units. And a walkway that promises therapeutic effects nears completion in Legazpi City. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.